I have been super excited to get Ziggy out on the trail again. I've been working him a little bit harder this last week, and I noticed this morning that his back was really sore. I was really looking forward to taking him to a special event today, but I'm just not going to ride him with his back this sore.
Come on, employee.
Thankfully, when I called to cancel, one of my friends said they did have a horse that I could borrow for the day. It has been a really long time since I've ridden a horse that does not belong to me, so I'm going to try and get all of my morning chores done really quickly so I have enough time to get acquainted with the horse I'll be riding today.
Studman. Goosey. Hi, Goose.
Thankfully, the boys aren't giving me any kind of problems this morning, so I get them fed, get the stalls cleaned inside. And just as the sun is about to peek over top of the mountains, it looks like I am ready to head out for the day. The event that I'm heading to today is actually a hunter pace / poker ride. It is very similar to the poker ride trail ride that I did with Ziggy, but there are a few main differences that I'll tell you guys about when I actually get there. The very last thing I have to do before I jump in the truck and head out is I am going to grab my helmet. It has been a number of years since I've been to a hunter pace, and sometimes they can get a little bit rowdy, so it's always better to be safe than sorry, and I want my brains to stay where they belong, so I'm just going to bring this guy along. Frisco Bill and I used to do hunter paces when we were much younger, but I haven't attended one of these events in quite a few years now. It was really nice to just show up and have a horse waiting for me. I am super excited to take this mare for a spin. She is actually a half Arabian. I believe her other half is standard bred. Now that I'm thinking about it, she may be half saddlebred. I don't know. I confuse the two all the time. I struggled a little bit to get on this girl because she is quite tall. She, I think, was around 15.3 hands, so much taller than Ziggy. This girl is a little bit on the green side, but she does get out and do endurance type trail things all the time. I am very confident with my ability to ride a strange horse, but this particular environment can add an extra layer of excitement. A hunter pace is made to kind of reflect what goes on in a regular fox hunt. There are no dogs here. The horses aren't actually chasing anything. This is an event that you're trying to get the optimum time. This event is also done typically in teams of 4, with one member of the team needing to go over a couple of jumps that are set up throughout the course. Here are a few very solid wooden coops that they had set up. The mare that I'm riding today, her name is Scout, and she was a little bit on the fresh side when we started.
You think Scout would jump that? I feel like she was jumping that high in the field earlier.
It's always a little bit tricky trying to figure out a new horse. We did end up being first out on the course, and even though we had already gone about 3/4 of a mile, this little girl was still pretty darn fresh. At this point, we were still really getting to know each other. I think Scout was convinced that she could just do whatever she wants, but I would really like to make sure that all of the brakes and steering work on a horse that I'm riding for the first time, especially in an environment like this.
Hey, girl. There.
I won't say that she was bucking, but she did have a few bouts of real enthusiasm at the beginning of the ride. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was a lot different than riding my short little roly-poly quarter horses. Scout had a lot of impulsion, so a very lofty gait, and I could tell just by the way that she was moving that she could go extremely fast if she was allowed to. I'm not sure how many acres we were traveling across today, but the trail was around 8 miles long. We did have to cross one road, and luckily all the horses were really good. We even had a motorcycle zip past us at one point. All of these horses in our team today get out and hit the trails quite often, so they have seen a lot of the world. I was still kind of getting to know Scout at this point. I think she's starting to take me a little bit more seriously now. I could tell she is really used to moving out without anybody holding her face. When I just let her trot and move along the trail, she was really happy. Hey. I noticed as we went along, she was having a little bit of a competitive spirit with some of the other horses. The first couple of miles, the trail just meandered up and down these rolling hills. It was extremely well marked. When Ziggy and I did the poker ride at the beginning of the season, it was a little bit hard to figure out where exactly we were supposed to go. But thankfully, there was a very clear path that we were supposed to be taking out here today.
It's like the perfect day for this.
There are a few different ways to quote-unquote win the event today. As we're moving down the trail, we're looking to get the optimum time, which I think is probably going to be completing the trail at roughly 5.5, 6 miles an hour.
Yeah. We got a hole. A big hole.
All of the horses we're riding today are moving at a pretty quick pace, and we are loping quite a few sections of the trail. The other way to win is to get the best poker hand, which is just like the trail ride I did earlier in the season. I thought real hard about bringing my GoPro for this, but it really is kind of a pain for me to bring out with the horses. Thankfully, one of our teammates was wearing one, so he got some really great views of the ride. After going up and down a few of the rolling hills, doing a little bit of long trotting and loping, it seems like Scout and I are finally starting to become new best friends. With all of the other horses finally calming down as well, it was really nice just to put these guys on a loose rein and enjoy the scenery for the day. Our team for the day consists of myself on the half Arabian. We've got a super cute full Arabian that looks about the same size as Ziggy. And then my new friends from Diamond Sky Ranch are both riding quarter horses today. This ride was so cool. Just when you thought the scenery couldn't get any better, we dipped down into a little gully and we ride past a clump of aspen trees. So there were lots of opportunities to let these horses stretch their legs. You can kind of tell in this view how much taller my horse is than the full-blooded Arabian.
You guys want to lope through this field?
For a horse still a little bit on the green side, Scout was being very brave. Even when we were loping past the woods, this can be really scary for a horse. After that really nice little lope along the woods, we came to the second spot we needed to draw a card from. Because this is a hunter pace poker ride, if you did jump some of the extra jumps, you were allowed to draw extra cards. Most of the riders that are here today are riding English, and our group does have a few Western riders in it. Scout and Dakota, who's the other Arabian, are in endurance saddles today. This event is a special kickoff to the fox hunting season. These coops along the other side of that woods were not very tall, but they are very solid. And for a horse that's just learning to jump or just does it very casually, like some of the horses in our group, they're a little bit too scary. This used to be one of Frisco Bill's most favorite things to do. Frisco was in a lot better shape back then, and I was also a bit more on the reckless side, so this would have been a super fun day for both of us. As we came up on another hill, the view was amazing. These are the same mountains that you can see from my place. Even though we've done quite a bit of trotting and loping already, the horses seem to be pretty fresh still.
To cross fence.
You guys want to do a little canter?
Yep.
Okay.
At about the 4-mile mark, we came across a really long straight field that we did a nice little hand gallop through.
That way, maybe?
I'm not gonna lie, at this point it seemed like Scout was just getting warmed up. I'm not sure exactly how long this field was, but when we turned and headed back the other direction, it seemed like all of the horses had a spark of energy. Scout had been really good so far about listening to me, and I thought if there was a place on this trail that I could just open her up and let her run, this would be the spot.
Turn. Where do we go? Oh, well, maybe not. Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, yeah. Good boy. Hey, just catch your breath. Catch your.
I never really understood what people meant when they said that Arabians are drinkers of the wind, but now I totally get it. I let Scout go as fast as she wanted to, and I feel like she still had a little bit more gas in the tank. After our long run, it seemed like the quarter horses really did need to kind of catch their air, while Scout and Dakota were ready to keep on cruising. As we came down off of the last big hill of the ride, I was pretty grateful that I decided to leave Ziggy at home. This trail is about the same length as the one we did in the mountains for the polka ride earlier this season. Ziggy would have been fine to walk this trail, but all of the long trotting, the hand galloping, and the flat out run that we just did would have been way too much for him right now, even if his back was in tip-top shape. Scout is in much better shape, and I have a feeling she will not even be warmed up by the end of the ride. One of the cool things that Dakota and Scout had on today were some little scoot boots. These boots are pretty handy if you're going to be going over rocks and want to add some protection to your barefoot horse.
There you go.
Anytime I borrow a horse for the day, it's really important to me that I don't teach them any bad habits while we're out on the trail. There is a pretty big difference between the way you ride a regular quarter horse out on the trail and how you would ride an endurance horse. Typically, when I ride my horses, I like them to stay chill and calm, especially near the end of the ride. But when you're out competing at an endurance race, you are actually racing and you are trying to come in under a certain time. I did think it would be beneficial for a Scout to walk a little while away from the other horses, and she was not super excited about it at first, but then she settled down and we had a really nice end of the ride together.
Okay. Easy, girl. You're okay. You're all right. You're all right. You're okay.
It was really interesting to see some of the similarities between Scout and Ziggy. Scout seemed pretty content by herself. She's very independent.
Hey, you're all right.
Ziggy is the exact same way.
Good walk.
A lot of quarter
There you go,
horses
girl.
out on the trail can get buddy sour very quickly, which is something that doesn't seem to happen too much with the Arabians. Scout seemed perfectly content to just walk out on a loose rein as the other horses trotted and loped away from her. She didn't throw any fits. She didn't get overly excited. She was just happy to keep cruising along, and we enjoyed the beautiful scenery and the spectacular view of the mountains at the end of the ride.
You're no good girl.
At this point, I know we are way ahead of the optimum time, so it's not a big deal that the rest of my team is having to wait for me. I think at this point we are probably coming in about 40 minutes too soon. I think we still have about 3/4 of a mile left as well.
Hey, you can walk.
It was kind of interesting to see that when the quarter horses were getting excited about doing another short little gallop, the little Arabians were fine to just go at whatever pace they were comfortable in. I really wanted to make sure I left Scout better off than when I started, so we did walk a good portion of the end of the trail. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it was because my legs were so extremely tired. Typically on a trail ride, I am just sitting there cruising along at a walk, and this trail ride, I spent the majority of it in a 2 or 3 point position just because this girl was so springy.
That's a good girl.
I don't think they have any plans to ever turn her into an arena horse or a competition horse, but I think this girl would make a really, really competitive eventer. Even just out on the trail, I can tell that she is a super good mover, and she is extremely brave as well.
Okay.
After walking for a good distance, I decided it would be okay if we did a little bit more trotting at the end of the trail. We did have one really large field to still get around, and with my legs feeling better, I thought it would be okay if we did some long trotting. With all of the events of the last couple of weeks, I think this ride is exactly what I needed to remind me why I even have horses. I got a little bit bummed out when I realized I don't really have a horse right now besides Ziggy that I could trust out in this environment.
We're coming, we're coming.
I've spent so much time over the last couple of years rehabbing and training horses just to send them on to their new homes. It might be time for me to be a little selfish and focus on my own horses for a while.
Let's gallop to the gate. I'll follow you. Okay. He's the timekeeper.
Whoa, whoa, bro.
For these events, they never actually tell you the optimum time until everyone has gone through, but I know we were quite a bit off, even though I did try and slow my team down a tiny little bit at the end. We spent some time cooling out Scout and Dakota. And even though we had just done about 8 miles, these two seemed like they could do it again very easily. It was really cool to see some of the teams had dressed up in costume. These guys were a bunch of little bumblebees. These little scoot boots seemed to stay on really well, even with all of the galloping we did. Dakota's Human actually owns a store that does test rides of these boots, so I'll link it in the description if you guys want to test them out. When we were done with our ride, we ended up finding a straggler that did not have a team to ride with. She came to this ride to put some time on her Mustang, who had never been out and about in a group like this, so we volunteered to escort her through the trail. It was really nice to pretty much walk the entire thing a second time. We were able to slow down and really take in the scenery. There was one creek crossing on this trail that did get significantly more muddy after a bunch of teams have gone through. I'm not exactly sure how many people altogether were here today, but I think it was around 60 maybe. For as many teams as were out today, we really didn't run into anybody. The organizers of this event did an extremely good job of making sure there was enough distance in between groups so there wasn't anybody passing each other or getting the other horses riled up. This super cute little Mustang that we're escorting around is from Devil's Garden. She does have a little red ribbon in her tail. I think it was just as a precaution because she really hasn't been out with other horses before. The second time through this really long field was a lot more calm. I was really surprised that Scout didn't insist on galloping through this field again, but it seems like compared to a quarter horse, these Arabians are a tad more sensible. Dakota and the little Mustang, whose name was Prairie, were able to move through this pasture on a nice loose rein. For the most part, there weren't too many incidents of spooking on this trail. Scout kind of gave that little pile a side eye for a second. I was really impressed about how the trail moved through all these hills and valleys. Even after a second time through the entire trail, the scenery just didn't get old. It was nice to be able to look around without worrying about stepping in any gopher holes. For the most part, the trail was really free from any debris. We didn't have to worry about any stray fencing laying anywhere. If there were gopher holes, they were very clearly marked with stakes and some orange tape, which was extremely nice. When we were about halfway through the trail this time, all of the horses were really relaxed and happy. They were moving pretty nicely forward. As we got up on the last kind of high point for the trail, it was a really spectacular view. Compared to the fast pace of our first time through this ride, the second time around I almost liked a little bit more. I am generally a pretty chill person, so I just kind of like to sit back and enjoy the ride a lot of times. Because Scout had already seen this trail one time, she was pretty much on autopilot. There was one spot where she went the wrong way, but she pretty quickly fixed it when she saw Dakota going in the other direction. At this point in the trail, it kind of felt like I was sitting on a cheese grater. My butt is not used to riding for this long. The saddle that is on Scout today, I believe, is a Tucker saddle. It does have a bit of padding on the seat, so it made it a little bit more tolerable. I would like to get out and do some longer rides with Ziggy when he's feeling better, just so I can see if he is well suited to endurance riding, which I'm guessing he is. He has all of the tools to be successful in that. He seems to really like getting out on the trail, whether it's with himself or with other horses. And much like Dakota and Scout, Ziggy seems to not have any trouble with other horses getting excitable around him. As we're heading back to the staging area, Miss Prairie, the Mustang, was doing awesome. She got a little bit of jogging in and she was super cute. After hanging out for a few hours with Prairie and her owner, it did make me feel like I would really like to get another Mustang sometime soon. Depending on who you talk to, there can be a lot of stigma around them, but I think with the proper training, they are really just like any other horse. For her first time out in a big ride like this with horses that she does not know, this little Mustang did really well. I am at a little bit of a weird spot right now because technically I'm not supposed to have any more horses at my main barn. We are coming into winter also, which makes it infinitely harder to take care of the horses. So for now, I'm just going to stick with the horses that I have. When I finally got down off of Scout, I kind of forgot how tall she was and my legs were not quite ready for the ground to be so far away. Even though we had just gone 16 miles, these two acted like they were going to head out for a third trip around the trail. I'm not sure exactly what time it was when we got back from our second trip, but I think the whole entire operation was waiting on us so they could give out the awards for the day. While they rounded up everybody to give out some cash prizes, we took to taking care of our horses. Scout was so much fun to ride today, even if in the beginning she was a little bit on the sassy side. I think in the end we became friends and she was able to enjoy having someone different ride her. I really had never thought too much about getting Arabians or half Arabians before Ziggy, but after dealing with this girl, I do think that the next time I see one at an auction, I'll be more knowledgeable and prepared to bring another one home if they're in need. Even though Scout does not belong to me, I spent quite a bit of time getting her cooled off and getting all the sweat and dirt off of her. I am so thankful that I've accumulated so many horse friends that are willing to lend me a mount when mine isn't quite up to snuff. Thank you guys so much for watching and stay tuned for the next video.